Good morning, everybody. Here from the Little Bear Meditation Center, north of the Arctic Circle in Finland, where Finland, Norway, and Sweden all come together, getting near the top of the world, under Polaris and so forth. We just had our pre-full moon meditation a few hours ago, and we're dealing with the energies of Virgo now. And tonight, or at least our tonight, or let's say at 5:32 Greenwich Mean Time or Universal Time, we will begin our broadcast with music and images. Tuija will be leading that, and that will include the moment of the exact full moon at 7:05 in the evening and 2 seconds, 7:05:02. So if you do not have other full moon activities, I hope that you can be free to join us. We've been working with the technique of light, and we reached the end of the little section on the dissipation of group and national glamour, and world glamour, really. I'd like to begin this ongoing section concerning the technique of light related to the dissipation of individual glamour. The two are so interactive that we really need both going simultaneously. We're not really, in our present condition, we're not fit to be workers in this field unless we've managed to significantly dissipate the individual glamours to which we may be subject. And really, until the third initiation takes place, they do exist, and they can be quite subtle and obstructive. So we have to become very trained in our ability to be the observer of those conditions of our Kama monastic body in which the glamours arise, and also in general on the astral plane, the Kama monastic body of humanity. So this is we'll read bit by bit every week, just to give us the foundation. And this is the dissipation of individual glamour, at which I assume we are all working according to the formulas that we have been given. Let's see here. I just want to get this going correctly. Nope, that's not correct. There it is. Let us first of all consider the mode by which the individual aspirant can succeed in dissipating the glamours which have for ages conditioned his life in the three worlds. Ages. He has been dominated. This is such an interesting statement coming up, because DK, he's very precise with his numbers. For instance, he doesn't tell us that we eat too much. He tells us that we eat 4 times too much. So, and here he tells us that the individual has been dominated by desire for 4/5 of his incarnated experience. Well, we know that we want desire to give way to mentality, and we know we want the energies of the solar plexus to give way to the energies of the heart. This may tell us something about the point at which we begin to reorient and, as it were, reverse the wheel and change the direction of the energies which are operating in our energy system. So this, we're coming here into the period of the work in the 5th petal of the egoic lotus, where we learn to become the aspirant. He has begun to transmute his desire into aspiration, higher desire, I suppose we could call it, and to seek with all the devotion, emotion, and longing of which he is capable, because he's still, very much emotionally polarized, to seek for realization. It is then that he becomes aware of the appalling nature of the glamours in which he automatically, because of so much conditioning for so many years, in which he automatically and normally walks. Well, okay, does that characterize us? Are we aware somehow of the appalling nature of the glamours in which we are walking? Remember that Master DK told us that both he and Alice Bailey have a certain horror of glamour. So, I would venture to say that probably for us, the sense of being surrounded by appalling glamour in our own individual life is not so impressive. So, let's just try to really see what it is that we are surrounded by and what is conditioning us. And when we are sufficiently appalled, then we shall have arrived. Glamour arose, he says, when man recognized and registered desire as an incentive. I mean, he was driven by desire for many more years than that, but then he began to recognize that he was, thus demonstrating his humanity, which involves the mind, and his distinction from the animal, who is also driven by the desire, because it is the mind which reveals the existence of desire. So a certain amount of recognition is needed here by the man who is becoming aware of glamour. This was long ago in Atlantis, maybe even early Atlantean times, and some of this glamour was a natural thing due to human ignorance, and other aspects of it were fostered by the forces of obstruction. The instinctual effort to satisfy desire, innate and inherent in the lower nature, which is driven, we might say, by the Martian impulses, the planet Mars, to mindlessly satisfy desire, gave way to the planned efforts to meet desire. So the mind is entering in here. It's not just being driven by instinct or being driven by what one wants for immediate gratification, but we begin to actually use the planning faculty of the mind to better accomplish the desires that we recognize within ourselves. So this instinctual effort at satisfaction gave way to the planned efforts to meet desire involving the directive use of the mind. There's a lot of the first ray that and the factor of will that comes into the mind, and it can be used, of course, for positive or negative purposes, but in these early days it was used rather ignorantly, even if skillfully. Thus, the line of demarcation between the animal and the human has become increasingly apparent because, of course, the animal does not consciously plan. There may be cunning strategies that it's working out, but it doesn't really see and observe what it is doing. Thus, the line of demarcation between the animal and the human became increasingly apparent, and the first and basic expression of pure selfishness appeared eons ago. And this is, was it Lemurian times? It certainly was fostered in Atlantean times during the third subrace of Atlantis, when the moon chain egos came in and the strategic ability to use the third ray came in. Later, as evolution proceeded and desire shifted from one planned activity, one planned satisfaction to another, it began to take on a less physical aspect, desire did, and men sought pleasure in emotional experience and in its dramatization. I mean, even now we do see human beings who are, maybe not so many, who are seeking pleasure in strictly physical satisfactions, and many other who desire the emotional experience and its satisfaction. And here, the pleasure is found also in the dramatization. One is reminded here of the labors of Hercules. Hercules was a great Atlantean soul, and he was an initiate at that time. DK gives his rays as the first ray soul, second ray personality, fourth ray mind, and he was the writer of instructive dramas for the humanity at the time, because that was the way that humanity was learning. And even in Masonry, which has a very ancient past, there is dramatization through ritual. That's how people were learning in those days, and still can learn today, and many must learn in that way today. So this led to the establishment of the drama, and as its first artistic expression. And by means of this, down the ages, man has supplemented individual emotion, his own, and dramatic living with vicarious submergence in it. Thus, in other words, entering into the dramas of all humanity. And the Greek philosophers had a lot to say about that. They theorized about the value of drama and tragedy and comedy and so forth. But this is all vicarious participation and what we might call the willing suspension of disbelief. So it's as if you're entering in this somehow, and yet you still know you are you. When it's all over, you have been the observer of it, and it hasn't been your own emotional, individual drama. So the man has exteriorized himself and has been supplementing his personal dramas, his personal desires and objectives, with those which were developed by means of the creative imagination, the artistic method. Thus, and of course, Atlantis was a highly artistic culture. I think we can see that, with so much emphasis upon the fourth ray, thus laying the foundation for the recognition, intelligent and real, of the part in relation to the whole. We have to stand back from our own individual dramas to see our role within the process of the whole. Thus, from earliest Atlantean times, and that was 10 million years ago, even 12 million years ago, thus from earliest Atlantean times, the foundation was laid for the unfoldment of the sense of mystical duality through the various stages of an anthropomorphic recognition of deity. Now, these are the stages that we're going through on the way to the recognition of mystical duality and beyond. The anthropomorphic recognition of deity, in which God is, well, I should put it the other way around. I should say this way, that a man makes God in his own image. Of course, we have the occult truth that God made man in his own image, but it's also true that our conceptions of what a deity is are made according to our own limitations. So the gods of ancient cultures may have been far less sophisticated than our conception of God at the present time. So the unfoldment of this sense of mysticism comes through the anthropomorphic recognition of deity. It's even going on today, where to God, or whatever name he may be called by, are attributed all of these very negative human emotions. Our God is a jealous God. Our God is offended. Our God doesn't like this, doesn't like that. It's all very childish in a way, and that's an early stage. Onward to the recognition of the real in man himself. This would be God immanent, finding out that the divine is within ourselves, until finally we arrive at the proposition which faces the disciple, namely that we are God immanent. We have to cultivate the emergence of that God and eventually understand our identification with God transcendent. That's where we are at the present time. At least some of us are, but so many people in the world are still, in this anthropomorphic stage, which is very glamorous, of course, and unreal, and veils the real. And then here we are as the disciple. And in this wonderful book, Glamour World Problem, the whole battle with the dweller on the threshold is discussed. Then the dweller on the threshold confronts the angel of the presence. And the last major conflict is fought out. Well, DK actually takes this all the way to the fifth initiation, very interestingly, but right now I think he's talking pretty much about the third initiation, where a major battle is going to be fought out, and he tells us that at this third initiation, the two planets which are involved are the Moon and Mars. But Mars, of course, stands for all that is personal, full of desire, full of glamour, full of urgency, but not much light. In other words, too much heat and not much light. And then the Moon is there, but it is veiling a hidden planet. Well, what planets are hidden? Let's just say that Uranus isn't hidden anymore, Neptune isn't hidden anymore, but there's another sacred planet that is hidden. And that sacred planet, in my view anyway, that is hidden is Vulcan. Vulcan entering with the spiritual will at the third initiation. Vulcan full of light, having a tremendous capacity to what has been called burnish, or polish the shield of Mars, meaning that all of the opaque qualities about our personality are set aside and we begin to shine. And that, shine forth. That happens at the third initiation. So I believe it's a big battle between Cain and Abel, between Vulcan and Abel the shepherd, involved with Mars, the sheep, and then the goats, which are more related to Vulcan at this point. And when that big battle is fought out, and the higher type of identity is beginning to emerge, then indeed a major conflict is past. And DK calls this a fearful conflict. Now, so interesting about fear in relation to Mars, he has two satellites, Deimos and Phobos. I forget which is which, but they're pretty much called fear and terror. And we have to overcome the fear through the spiritual will and through identification with the higher self, through our soul nature at that time. And then a major, major victory over glamour occurs. Now, that doesn't mean we're free of illusion, okay? And maybe we're not free of illusion. Well, he tells us the ninth initiation. But okay, illusions in the great illusion are ongoing. They are just relatively more attenuated as we go. So this dualistic consciousness, he says, culminates at the time of the third initiation in the final fight between the pairs of opposites, which would be soul and personality, and the triumphant victory of the angel, the embodiment of the forces of good in the individual, in the group, and in humanity. That kind of spells it out, doesn't it? Of course, there are other types of tests on the way to the fourth initiation, but they are not quite so individual. Let us say we're dealing more with the dweller on the threshold in the human terms across the entire race, and with the soul of humanity. Then dualism and the desire for that which is material and not one's self dies out, because the self is more and more identified with the whole and realizes there is no my soul or thy soul. This is one of the realizations which really begins to dawn at the third degree. So unity and the life more abundantly is achieved at this climactic point. And I want to say that the spirit really begins to enter here, clarifying everything, and the spiritual triad will bring in the intuition, and illusion will be dispelled. A lot of this is happening under Jupiter, as we were discussing several hours ago when talking about the hierarchical ruler of Virgo being Jupiter. It's also the planet which rules the monadic plane. And it is the planet of great abundance. And so we can really understand that at the third degree, with many of the veils gone away, we really begin to understand what is that life more abundant, and illusion begins to fade and reality comes into the picture. later he says something about reality, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to go slow with this, not jump into it too extensively. But he does say this, and I'll come back to it when we go further. He says the dissipation of glamour is a satisfying experience. Well, a lot of freedom there, and many misconceptions give way. And then with the dissipation of the glamour comes the seeing of the real. And he calls this a terrifying experience, brother of mine. And I think this is very interesting because there's so much of our nature that recoils from the real. It has been called sometimes the repression of the sublime, or maybe it's suppression of the sublime. Excuse me. So anyway, I think maybe that's enough for us to think about for right now. And I'll just say that we'll carry on with this as we go. So this is Dissipation of Glamour Initiative number 15, and I was intending to end later, but I think that maybe this is enough to discuss. It's very subtle stuff we're dealing with here, and the problem is we don't really see what's happening. That's why we have to become truly trained observers and really use the mind to see. And we're not all in that stage yet, are we? I think we aren't, So we have to learn how to almost scientifically, as Roberto Assagioli said, just view whatever's happening in your system as a scientist would objectively view something that was not part of himself and just wanted to describe it. So, okay, let's focus on this a little bit, and if you have particular thoughts, and remember too, as you've been thinking about glamour in your own life, glamour in the world, this is also the time in the middle of our program where you can bring up those thoughts as well. We can concentrate on what has been presented here, a paragraph or two, but you can also bring up other questions or make other comments if you wish. So I will open the floor to this if you would like to. When we have these early morning broadcasts, maybe not so many are able to join us because then it's quite late at night for people in the United States. It all begins like 1 o'clock in the morning, so you have to be unusually dedicated to be there at that hour. It's better for the people in Europe, and it's okay, quite okay for the people in Australia and New Zealand. So your thoughts then, friends, questions if you have any, and Brett will help me make sure that I don't miss any of these. Any thoughts or questions about this history of glamour and what we and how surrounded we are by it, and how little we detect it, and maybe the ways of observing it and standing back with the mind to observe it and thereby prepare the method for its dissipation. After four-fifths of our evolution has passed. And I would say for many of us, a lot more than four-fifths of our evolution has passed when you consider possibly 18 million years of evolution or 21 million years of evolution on this planet. And maybe for many of us, because we are maybe, the more mental types, moon chain experience as well. So we've been at it a long time and are finally trying to clear up the mess that we have made and get clear about what is reality. So any thoughts here, and you're most welcome to offer them or to offer any questions you may have. I don't have all the answers, but I can certainly give it a try.
Yes.
Brett.
Rebecca has a question written.
Yeah. Right, and I see it. Thank you, Brett. Rebecca says, well, this is a whole big subject, Rebecca, so, actually we're going to take this up sometime in a careful manner. What are my thoughts about the dweller on the threshold and its relationship to glamour? Is it essentially the same thing? Well, I think that there are aspects of the dweller on the threshold, especially in the earlier stages of opposition, which have a lot of glamour in them. For instance, when we think about approaching the second initiation, we think about the battles in Scorpio in relation to the emotional plane. We think about fear, hatred, and ambition as the three emotional heads of the Hydra. That's going to be a very emotional battle at first. But here's the point that I would like to make. The dweller on the threshold continues to be refined. So what may be a very crude presentation at first, with all of the things you recognize as negative and dispensable and unnecessary, those things that really get in the way, those things do give way to something much more refined, much more subtle, until, as DK tells us, the entire high-grade personality, representing the third aspect of divinity, itself becomes the dweller on the threshold. And it can be of a very high grade. It's just not yet into the realm of soul realization and soul expression. So our virtues, our personal virtues, can become the dweller. And that is not glamour per se. So we have to learn really the distinction between what we are as a soul and a spirit and what we are as a high-grade personality who is relatively free of glamour and even of illusion. And that high-grade personality itself in the later days becomes literally the one who dwells on the threshold of divinity and has to merge with the angel. So the glamours have been already banished, and yet the dweller still exists. This is what I want to emphasize. And only, when we reach the fourth and even fifth initiation, is there a complete merging of the real higher self with its personal demonstration, and then the dweller and the angel are really becoming the same thing, and the higher energies can express themselves thoroughly through the outer human being who is completely devoid of glamour, completely devoid of illusion, and finally has given up a separative personality orientation and has become a subray of the soul and even a subray of the spiritual triad and the monad. So the dweller and glamour are not exactly the same. That's my final point on that. And I hope I'm being as clear as possible. And we will study this in this book. It's an amazing discussion of how the dweller appears at the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth initiations. And it's always different. Very interesting. Okay. Thanks for the question, Rebecca. Anything else, friends, that you would like, in your studies, whatever questions you might have as you've been thinking about this whole issue of glamour? Other things, Brett? Other things showing up?
Nicholas has his hand up.
Okay, Nicholas, there we go. Okay, Nicholas, I hope I can hear you. I don't see your microphone. Can you? You're welcome to talk, but I don't see your microphone. So there's something going on there.
Yeah, he's offline.
Yeah, something is not quite right, huh? Okay. Well, then when you get back online, Nicholas, we'll deal with it. Yes. Okay. Hold on. Tuija, are you in this too?
I am here.
Okay, you are there. Okay. Yeah. What is your thought, Tuija? Go ahead.
I was just reflecting these points when we think about the evolution of disciple, and at that point what is said that the disciple is standing in the midway point, where comes this pull of the both sides, from the dweller and from the angel of presence, and this moment of choice which we need to have developed the mental capacity in order to move forward forward or respond to the higher vibrations of the higher life. And how he is describing when the disciple is in that point that the master cannot do anything, also the personality is waiting for the response of the disciple. The lower bodies are like trapped into those conditions, and then the higher faculties has not been yet developed in that sense that it would be easy. They are developed in the way that there is the possibility of the response to the higher, but there can be also the point of failing. And then I was thinking about the Christ when the fourth initiation of Jesus and the sixth of Christ was going on, and the moment in Gethsemane, where it is a kind of similar moment that I remember once reading a book what was saying that the whole world stood still when the Christ was making the decision. Like also in that point that one has to do the decision which way one is now moving forward, and how then we stand still in that midway point, and how crucial those points are for the further involvement in the whole as well. So that even though when one thinks about the third initiation, when the dweller has not anymore that kind of pull, but in that midway point, the pull is enormous for both directions, and even in the higher realm. Of course, when thinking about the fifth initiation, it is related to this human evolution. It's the perfected man then standing, but then at the sixth initiation starts again a new kind of life where this moment is that the monad then who is affecting and standing still beside the higher initiate, when before the third initiation the master and the soul are standing still and all are looking at that point.
Okay. Thank you for those thoughts. You know, it brings up a very important point. Of course, there's always going to be challenges. I mean, we cannot possibly believe that any kind of permanent state may be ours as a human being when DK presents this whole ladder of being and the challenges which exist for every grade of being. Our planetary logos has challenges and has failed. I don't know about the solar logos, but it certainly has its challenges, and on and on and on. One of the most important things to emerge, I think, from what you were saying, at least from my perspective, is who really is the disciple. And, the disciple at the midway point, having to clear-eyed and intelligently choose the way to go. And I would say that one of the ways of thinking about who is the disciple is it's not the personality. It is that aspect of soul consciousness which has been, as it were, put down or immersed in the personality field. It is the soul in incarnation that really is the disciple, and of course we don't know that for quite a while, but finally we come to ourselves as the observer, and we realize that in fact we are not the personality, and we are not yet fully the soul on its own plane. We are always standing at that midway point, having to make intelligent choice as the soul in incarnation. So that's a very specific kind of sense of ourselves from which we can operate intelligently in the field of glamour and illusion, and hopefully we will all come to the realization that that is what we are, until, of course, at the third degree, we develop that capacity to focus practically in the causal body. That, and DK says we're not successful in meditation until we can really do that. So we have quite a bit ahead of us on that. Brett, are there any other people that would like to say anything here? Okay, we're just going paragraph by paragraph, steadily, carefully, and Nick, I think we've got you now. Okay, you go ahead, Nicholas. Go ahead.
Well, first, I wonder if there was a bad connection only to me the last 10 minutes or not, because I had no signal at all, and I listened to nothing about the whole, even the question and your reply. I don't know.
It's hard to tell. These are local conditions.
But I need to.
Yeah, we can't tell.
Yes,
we can't
okay.
tell. But
and what I need to.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Nick. Whoop.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. What's up?
Something's happening. The transmission is not good. If you're talking, it's cutting. But anyway, let's see what we can do.
Right.
Give it a try.
Can you listen to me now?
So far so
yes.
good.
Yes. 1, 2, 3.
Good.
Good. Okay. So I was focused on that paragraph of the text on screen now, where it says that the person is living with vicarious submergence in emotional and dramatic living, and this is leading finally through creative imagination to the recognition of the part in relation to the whole. And can you listen to me, please?
Can hear you. Go ahead.
Can you listen to me?
We're hearing you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
So this part is important about let's say the current state of humanity as a disciple, meaning that humanity is exactly at this point where the members of the human race are working on realization of their relationship as individuals to the whole. And a culmination of this situation was exactly the romantic movement a couple of centuries ago, and after that the great ideologic movements. Those are exactly depictive of this period, which is signified. We had interestingly the last 2 days group discussion on tragedy and the relationship of tragedy to the constitution of the self-reflection of individuals. It is very important, because exactly at this point we can realize how the whole social and political things are developing in our world today.
Yes. And now that we have the communication system and the internet, we are vicariously participating in the lives of thousands and millions, even millions of people. So, our place within the whole can be more accurately assessed, because we are actually in the lives of those that we otherwise would never contact. We have a unique opportunity to sense the unity in which we are participating. Or we can go into fragmentation, as so many thousands are doing at this time, and choose the negative path of rejection. So it's a big opportunity at this moment, due to where technology has taken us and our sense of omnipresence, our growing sense of omnipresence. I can be anywhere through the media, through my, I don't have to just use my imagination. I am there, and I am in your life, and whose life is it anyway? And this comes closer to revealing the one soul of humanity. So hopefully we can take advantage of this as it should be. Thank you, Nicholas. Okay, Brett, are there any others before we begin to work in our meditation? I'm just trying to I don't see any other comments. Now remember, at this point, we can focus on the paragraph, which, are DK's amazing paragraphs. Such a deep, deep writer, and speaking from proven experience, yes, but also, what we've been pondering in the previous week, that too is possible to come up with at this point. But if not, then I will move forward into the meditation. And every Friday, every Venus day, every fifth ray day, every Ajna Center day, as it were, we'll be tackling this book. And I think it will take us some years, actually. I don't think when Olivia, Tuija, and I thought, well, okay, we're going to present this glamour work as it's being done by a number of groups in various places. I don't know if we knew how long it would go on, but the more I assess this, we have a lot to learn. And to be clear, what DK said is between the first and second initiation, where so many of us may find ourselves, there is the constant attempt of the disciple to clear himself or herself. Now, this is a term that is used in psychology all the time, and it has to do with centering, with detaching, with observing, with not being immersed in the swirl of rather impulsive activities, but holding one's center as the clear seeing, mentally focused observer who is holding the mind steady in the light. This is what we have to achieve, and it's going to take us a while to do this. We may think that we are free of our glamours, but such a thing can be a glamour in itself. Remember, only at the third degree and beyond can we really be quite sure that the normal types of glamours have been dissipated from our consciousness. Okay. Now remember, this is a full moon day, so Virgo is very, very useful in the dissipation of glamour. It has such an acuity concerned with it, such an ability to see with clarity through Mercury, and through other planets that are associated with it. So try to keep your mind as clear as possible today as we move towards the full moon in about a little more than 12 hours. So 12, 13 hours will be there. So if you want to join us, the link is in your chat box as far as I understand. Okay, friends, let's go on. And by now we begin to understand how this is done. And while we cannot name all the group members participating, in small groups you can do that. We can have some silence of the soul as we link with each other in the state of soul presence. And in this silence we are strengthening our contact and connecting with the higher energies. We are together, going to act as agents of the light, individually and in group form. It's serious work, and we have to protect ourselves. Maybe if we were a member of hierarchy, there would be less need for that, but we are where we are. So here's the protective formula, which we will say together. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point I never move. And we will think this through, make the sign of the cross as DK has told us, involving the forehead, the chest, and the two eyes. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. We are dealing with three lights. We lift up the light of matter, largely etheric, physical, and emotional. The light is lifted up onto the mental plane where it meets the light of mind. So that's the light of matter and mind. We use the creative imagination to do this. And meditatively, we think about the soul. And whatever way we use, whether it's imagination, real contact, we somehow recognize the soul light, the third type of light. This light of the soul. And bring it down imaginatively onto the mental plane where the other two lights are fusing and blending. And we fuse and blend the light of matter, the light of mind, and the light of the soul. We do this in our imagination. And when that image is clear, we say together, the light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. We remember that particular light, called the light of day, is related to Scorpio and thus to humanity and to the plane of intuition. The light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. The sacred word. Oh. So now we are ready to apply the formula, and we begin with this powerful statement which we say as if together. Radiance are we, and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We're linking the world of the soul with the astral plane. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light, we work and turn the darkness into day. We have to realize how important is the factor of understanding. So our searchlight, which we have created, it's being turned onto the astral plane, and we try to really understand what we are attempting to do. How we are going to use this beam to clear away the clouds of glamour and let the sun of reality shine forth. So we have a group beam to be empowered by the will, and all of our individual beams going forth from the ajna center, but really the result of the triangle in the head, will be empowered by the spiritual will, which we invoke from the higher aspects of the soul and even from the atmic plane. There is the will of the monad working out through Atma. And that will of the monad is the will of the planetary logos, leading from plan to purpose. So our beam is empowered by the spiritual will, which brings the plan forward and gets rid of the obstructions to the divine plan, in this case, the obstruction of glamour. That beam goes forth and we say, with power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. So we realize this is a very powerful beam, a group beam, a will-inspired group beam of 3 lights, and naming the glamour to be dissipated, the glamour of hatred and of separativeness from which the hatred grows. And now this beam is being thrown upon those clouds of glamour on the astral plane. But the wind of the intuition, it scatters those clouds. And the sun, with its illuminative heat, evaporates those clouds, and our beam is effective. Getting into the glamour, understanding it. We'll try to understand just for a moment what are the implications when hatred and separativeness are allowed to express. And in our world there is so much of this, politically, socially, religiously, so many unnecessary barriers which prevent mutual understanding and cause an unwanted, unjustified repulsion between the human beings who should be coming together in cooperation. And so now we're going to work with our beam. The power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of hatred and separativeness. The power of our united light negates the quality of the glamour from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life, the vitality, we might say, destroys the life behind the glamour. So, in silence, for the 5 minutes that DK recommends here, we're going to work with the beam. See that beam, that will-empowered beam, penetrating the glamour, producing its weakening and its dissipation. power of the light, of our united light, prevents the appearance of the glamour of hatred and separativeness. The power of our united light negates the quality of the glamour from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life behind the glamour. Now we deliberately withdraw the beam that we have created as a group. We withdraw it from the astral plane. We come back into the plane of mind, particularly refocusing together upon the mental plane, and we will visit and revisit these areas of obscurity again and again, and using this unicorn beam to dissipate, according to occult technique, these glamours which are holding humanity in prison. So we will continue. This is the full moon day. Our broadcast will begin at 5:32 p.m. GMT here in Finland, 8:32 p.m. The actual full moon, 7:05 p.m. and 2 seconds. And we'll hold our, whatever we may be doing, maybe many practical things, because it's Virgo, you know, but we will hold our sense of the clarity which must be achieved as we seek to unite all three aspects of divinity within ourselves and see to the blossoming, the radiation, the expression of the Christ principle through our personality, nature, Christ in you, the hope of glory. So, friends, thank you for your participation this morning, evening, afternoon, whatever, and we'll be seeing you before long, and we'll be continuing, of course, our ASK process. It's the morning series working with the souls of nations and the attraction of money for hierarchical purposes on Saturday and Sunday. So all the best, and have a very good day or good evening, whatever it is for you, and we will see you on the next occasion. Bye for now.